bar chords. Ah! Just kidding. I know that bar chords can be pretty scary for a lot of guitar players when they're first starting out with them, but there's no need to be afraid of them. They are some of the most physically demanding chords that we can face as guitar players and that you're going to learn, but they are also some of the most useful chords you will ever learn. They're going to help you be able to play a lot of your favorite songs, which is awesome. And you may be asking yourself, well, what is a bar chord anyways? For our purposes, a bar chord in this lesson is when you take your index finger and play more than one string, in this case all 6 strings, with just that one finger by placing it across it like that, and then just pressing down on all 6 strings. And then we're going to be learning the E major bar chord shape, so you would make the E major shape with your second, third, and fourth fingers there. And we'll get into that more later. And this is pretty tough at first. It takes a lot of new coordination and a lot of strength that you have to build. But one of the ways we're going to make this easier for you is to go through something called the Clean Bar Checklist, and that's in the Guitar Foundations ebook. If you don't have that, you can head over to natesavage.com and check that out. Let's actually get into that right now. We'll go through that, and then we'll go through the steps that you need to be able to make a clean bar chord. Number 1, get your guitar set up if you haven't already. If you have really high action on your guitar, if the strings are really far off the fretboard, it is going to make bar chords very hard, harder than necessary, maybe even impossible depending on how high your action in it is. So if you think your action is too high on your guitar, just go get it set up. It's really worth the investment. Number 2, work on creating the bar on its own before even trying to make the whole shape. So getting the coordination down to be able to play a bar by itself cleanly is a really important step before trying to make the whole shape. Number 3, put the bar on using a clamp-like motion between your first finger and your thumb, or like your thumb should come down right in between kind of your first finger and second finger. And then your thumb should be on the back of the neck like a clamp like this, right? Let me get a little bit better view there like that. And not like this with your thumb hanging over. This is one time where you do want your thumb on the back of the fretboard so you can get a really strong clamp motion like this. Number 4, place your bar right behind the fret. Just like you did when you're learning your open chords and you wanted your fingers right behind the frets, same thing here. You want that bar right behind that fret. And it may look like my finger's on the fret. It's not. We'll get into why that is here in the next couple of tips. But you want it right behind the fret. Otherwise, if you have it in the middle or toward the back, it's going to sound like that. You want to get it right behind that fret. Number 5, experiment with the vertical placement of your finger. We all have these creases in our fingers that make little dead spots or potential dead spots when we're making bar chords. So what you have to do is play around with where you place your finger vertically to minimize the effects of those creases. So just keep that in mind as you start to develop your bar. If it sounds kind of muty or buzzy, play around with it, the location, and just find the sweet spot on your finger in your guitar where it sounds best. Number 6, tilt or lean your finger back onto the edge instead of using just the very flat bottom part of your finger like this. What you want to do is tilt it back, kind of like this. And that's why it looks like my finger's kind of on the fret. It's not. It's just tilted back to where I'm on that bony edge of my finger instead of the fleshy middle part there. So that's a big tip that really helps kind of bring out the cleanest sound of all 6 strings. So normal flat kind of posture, tilt it back. Number 7, don't kink your wrist too far one way or the other. If you kink it too far this way, it's really going to hurt after a while with these bar chords because you're exerting so much force. If you kink it too far the other way, your thumb's probably going to come over the fretboard. It's going to be near impossible to get a good angle of attack to get that bar and make it sound really good. So be careful with that. Number 8, don't raise your elbow up too high. If you have it like this, that is going to make it really tough to make a good bar. So watch what happens when my elbow comes down. My finger gets more parallel to the frets or perpendicular to the strings, and it causes me to be able to roll back on the edge of my finger and get a good sound and a good clamp on the guitar to make a clean bar. All right, so that is the clean bar checklist. Read through it a few times and just be familiar with it because you're going to need it as soon as we start working on the bar. But the first step here to being able to play this E bar chord shape is to get to where you can play the open E major chord on its own with your second, third, and fourth fingers instead of your first, second, and third fingers. So if you have your regular open E major, what you want to do is be able to play that with your second, third, and fourth fingers instead of your first, second, and third fingers. So your third finger ends up on the second fret of the A, pinky ends up on the 2nd fret of the D, second finger ends up on the 1st fret of the G. Just strum all 6 strings like you normally would. And treat this just like a new open chord. You want to get this to where you can go right to it without even thinking about it. You don't even want to work on making a clean bar until you can do this, since this is your first bar chord. So open E shape with 2nd, 3rd, and 4th fingers. That is step 1. If you need to stop the video right now and just work on that, I would highly encourage you to do that. If you're ready to go on to the next part, this is where the clean bar checklist will come in. We're going to work on just making the bar on its own first, so you can build that strength and coordination to have a really clean sounding bar. The exercise we're going to do for this is to just make a bar on the 1st fret, then move it up to the 2nd fret and work your way up and down the fretboard. If you're on an acoustic guitar, you probably want to stop around the 10th fret, because it gets really tough to play up higher than that on an acoustic. If you're on electric, you can go up to 14 or 12, something like that, and then just work your way back down. And the important thing here is going to be to work through this clean bar checklist and make sure that every note is clean. It is going to take some time to get this down because it just requires a lot of practicing to get the coordination and strength necessary to make a clean bar. And your hand probably is going to get tired and sore right here, so you can only work on this so much at a time. So maybe shorter practice sessions multiple times a day will be a really good way to start building that bar strength and coordination. But put your finger on the 1st fret, right behind the fret, elbow in, tilt your finger back. Don't kink your wrist too far one way or the other. And you can use your 2nd finger right here to help push down. When you're first starting out with this, that'll help kind of train your finger and, you know, make it baby step number 1 for getting your bar really clean. And the 1st fret back here is the toughest one because it's so close to the nut. Every other fret, you know, from like 2 to, I don't know, 8 are a lot easier than the 1st fret to me. But you want to do that. And eventually you're going to want to get to where you can make the bar on its own without that 2nd finger helping. So check each string and then move to the next fret. And what you can do is take it off, shake it out, you know, if it's starting to hurt, and then place it on the 2nd fret, right behind the fret, tilt your finger back. Don't kink your wrist too far one way or the other, elbow in. And take it off and go up to the next fret, 3rd fret. Same exact story. You just need to go through that clean bar checklist and listen. Maybe if it sounds like this, check your placement. 2 things happened there. I needed to check my placement of my, for my crease, and I just needed to exert some more force with my clamp. So try to find that sweet spot to where you have clean notes, but you're not killing yourself. Only use as much force as you need to. You don't want to make yourself tired for any undue reason, right? And just work your way up to the next one. Go through the checklist. It may take you 2 days to get this down. It may take you 2 or 3 weeks to get this down. It really depends. Just work your way up and then work your way back down. This is a big practice point, ground 0 after you can play that E major open chord with your 2nd, 3rd, and 4th fingers. So you hear that kind of right there? So watch the difference between this and this. I did a couple things there about my elbow in, and I unkinked my wrist a little bit, and I got closer to the fret. And I put a little more pressure with my clamp. All right, that is step 2 for making a clean bar chord. And I know this is a lot of work, but think about it like this. You're putting in a lot of the work that you need to play more than just one bar chord shape. This is gonna help you throughout all of your different bar chords, so be encouraged with that. Next, we need to put the shape and the bar together to play the E major bar chord shape. And to do that, we're gonna play a G major chord using the E major bar chord shape. And you think about this just like you did with your power chords. Just think about the lowest note on the low E string for your bar, and that's where this bar chord is gonna get its name from. We're gonna play a G major chord using the E major bar chord shape. So if we bar the 3rd fret, this note on the low E string is a G. That means you're gonna be playing a G major bar chord. So what you do is put your bar on the 3rd fret, and then once that's good, you can check each note, make sure it's clean, adjust if you need to, and then put the shape down with 2nd, 3rd, and 4th fingers. And what you're gonna wanna do is take that off, shake it out a little bit, and then do the opposite. Put the shape on first, and then the bar. And that kind of cross training is really good in hopes of shooting for getting the whole shape on at once. And that's what we're gonna be going for. But doing it like that to start out with is really good. Bar, shape, shape bar. So that cross-training method is going to be really critical once you get your two elements put together, the bar and the shape. So do you see how we just took that open E chord and moved it up 3 frets and then put our bar down as kind of a movable nut? 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. To create a G major chord using that E shape. And we're going to talk about bar chord movability here a little bit now. You can move the shape around to any location to play any major chord you want. If you move it up another whole step, 2 frets, where your bar is on the 5th fret, you could be playing an A major bar chord. Or if you move it up another half step to the 6th fret, that's a B flat note on the low E string, so you'd be playing a B flat major chord using the E bar chord shape. And if you need to stop the video and just work on getting the whole shape on there, that's totally fine. There's going to be a lot of time spent getting through all the individual points of this lesson. But we're going to move on to working through our first chord progression using this shape and working on kind of our movability. Same thing as we did with power chords. We're going to play a G major, C major, D major progression. So G, we already know where that is, 3rd fret. Now where is a C on the low E string? It's here on the 8th fret. So that's going to be our location for our C major chord. And now we're going to play a D. So where's a D on the low E string? It's here on the 10th fret. So you can put your bar there and play a D. And that's going to be the idea behind this exercise. We're going to play through a G, C, D progression using just the E bar chord shape. Now, the first step here, after you have the shape down and you can play it, is to just memorize where the root note locations are. So 3rd fret, 8th fret for C, 10th fret for D, right? Once you can do that, I want you to just strum along, you know, without a metronome. Play 2 measures of G, 1, 2, 3, 4. You can use a measure of rest to get to the next shape, to your C. 1, 2, 3, 4. The same thing, use a measure of rest to get to the next shape. 1, 2, 3, 4. Then a measure of rest to get back to G. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then another measure of rest. And that's the entire exercise. So play G, measure of rest, C, measure of rest, D, measure of rest, G, measure of rest, and then start the whole thing over again. So a really good exercise for the movability of chords is to just pick a random fret and see what that chord is based on where the root note is. 2nd fret is an F sharp. 2nd fret of the low E string is an F sharp, so that'd be an F sharp major chord using the E bar chord shape. If I moved it here, what's the 6th fret? That's a B flat, so I'd be playing a B flat using the E bar chord shape. So level 1 for this exercise is to just play through that progression with the rest with no metronome. Level 2 would be to throw a metronome on at 70 beats per minute, maybe 60 beats per minute, and use that to play through. I also have a jam track for you. That's just kind of a fun backing track with drums and bass, just so you can play through this progression and make it a little more interesting for yourself. If you want to download that jam track, just go to natesavage.com on the page for this lesson, and you can download it there. Or you can do like I'm about to do, and just play along to a metronome. 70 beats per minute. Just thinking really about where those note locations are, G, C, and D, and moving the chord progression around there with a measure of rest in between to give you time to move. 1, 2, 3, 4, rest, move to a C, 3, 4, C, 2, 3, 4, rest, measure, to a D. 1, 2, 3, 4, rest, go back to a G, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then a measure of rest, 2, 3, 4. And you're probably going to find that when you're first starting to practice this, you can only dedicate so much time to this per day. So, you know, maybe 10, 15, 20 minutes at the most of bar chord practice. That's a lot because you have to build up that strength and endurance in this muscle right here. So take that with a grain of salt and just practice as much as you can so that you're making progress on it, but you're not killing your hand. All right, the next version of this exercise, it just takes the rest out so that you have less time to actually make the chord change. But what you're gonna notice here is when you have this G, you're gonna have to let off of the pressure on that G bar chord to move to a C, otherwise you get this. You hear that, eh? You don't want that, so what you have to do is let off the pressure just a little bit and then move. Otherwise, you end up with a big squeak sound like that, which isn't bad if you're in a live situation, but if you're ever recording, it's going to be a nightmare. So it's a good habit to get into, to lift as you do this. So same thing, start off with no metronome. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Then move. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3. And then move. Move again. And you want to let these notes hang out as long as they can. And then back to G. 1, 2. And try to connect them as much as possible. Take it as slow as you need to at first. Once you have that down pretty well, you can either, again, pull up the metronome or pull up the jam track. Either one is fine. 2, 3, 4. G, 2, 3, 4. Another G. 1, 2, 3. Move to a C. 2, 3, 4. 1, 2. Comes the D. 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2. Then it comes back to the G. 4, 1, 2. And hold out as long as you can. 1, 2, 3, 4. So there is a lot of work to do in this lesson. You have no shortage of things to work on. It may take some of you a couple days, it may take some of you a couple months, and whichever camp you fall into there, it's fine. Just make sure that you're working on it as consistently as you can, and you're building the strength and coordination to get these bar chords down. Because like I said earlier, it may be discouraging at first, but realize that you're building all of the strength and coordination you need to play all of your bar chord shapes, not just this first one. The first one is usually hardest because there's so many new things to work on as far as the coordination and strength. So here are your assignments for this lesson. Number 1, work on playing the open E chord on its own with your 2nd, 3rd, and 4th fingers instead of your 1st, 2nd, 3rd fingers. You get that to where you can go right to it on its own. Number 2, read through the clean bar checklist several times until you're really familiar with all the tips. Number 3, go through that exercise and get the bar down on its own first before trying to play the entire bar chord shape. Number 4, put the bar and the chord shape together to play the whole E major bar chord shape. Number 5, move this E major bar chord shape up and down the neck. Just thinking about chord movability and the note names on the low E string so you know which major chord you're playing. For example, F sharp, G, G sharp or A flat, A, B flat, B. Number 6, play through the G, C, D, G progression with no jam track at all, just getting the feel down for both the version of this exercise with rests and the version of this exercise with no rests. Number 7, play through the G, C, D, G chord progression with a metronome or the jam track to help keep yourself in time. Make sure to hold out 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold out that chord as long as possible before moving to the next chord and lift up on the pressure so you don't get that really squeaky sound. I know this is a lot of work and it's not the easiest thing in the world, but you can do it. If you have any questions, you can leave them here in the comments below, or you can email me directly at nate@natesavage.com. Now, if you're having really serious trouble with any of these individual areas, you can always go to natesavage.com and schedule a private lesson with me. The first one is complimentary, so there's no risk. I will see you in the next lesson. We're going to take this to the next level.